Alright, alright class, so the thing is I have to speed this up a bit for you to understand the process. So I have my first one that I've been doing with you guys, okay? It's got layers on it. Now, after this was done with like 12 to 10 layers, maybe even at least 10, so it's properly thick, then I start this next process, which is I have another tile here that doesn't have rubber on it. So you have to know this hat would have rubber on this before you do this process, okay? And there would be a flange like that. Now, you could put it on top of clay, which is the best way if you can get it up. But if you can't get it up without ruining it because it's firmly attached to your cardboard, like this one's going to be, then you're going to need to do this onto the cardboard, which is, the process would be taking clay onto the cardboard and building up a wall all the way around it. When you do it, you need to make sure you really push it down. So if you can see, I'm putting it down and then I'm really, really close up here, if I can get it, pushing down so it's firmly sealed all the way around it, all the way down onto the cardboard so that it's fully sealed so you don't get plaster going everywhere. You want it to be firm. I'm trying to wiggle it. It's not. So if I pour plaster, it's not going to leak everywhere. All the way around it with a clay wall. Okay, let's go back to the one I already got mostly started to keep showing you the process. Sorry for the shakiness there. Now, this one I have the clay underneath it because it's a different tile. And I don't want it to leak out everywhere. But this one has the rubber already on it. If it had the rubber already on it, I keep on doing that process where I'm really pushing in and adding the rest of the clay wall. Importantly, it's obvious, but just make sure you know it. It has to be taller than the tile, obviously, and up high enough to get a decent amount of, get the plaster in there without leaking over the top, right? Now, the cleaner I do this, the cleaner the mold will be. So what I've done is I started the process getting it all in there, and I'm using just a tool. You could use a spoon, anything like this one, just got a ball on it. And I'm going in here and smoothing out the inside of this area to make a smooth mold. I have it all set up inside here. Now I want to say something important that I may not have said last time, but it's pretty clear, is that whatever you have on your tile is going to be part of the mold. So if you have weird little bits you don't like on your actual sculpture that you made, you need to get rid of them because all those little bits, the mold making rubber will really pick up a lot of detail. Certain types of rubber, maybe not this latex one that you are using right now, but certain types of them would actually be able to pick up to the point where you could create like a playable record if you're casting a record. So there's a lot of detail that is possible with mold making. If that's the case, then you really need to make sure you have it how you want it to be. Otherwise, the things will show up. So I've got this all set up. I'm going to spend some time smoothing it out in here. I actually smoothed the bottom layer quite a bit before I even got you guys on here. So that's good. But I'm also thinking about the edges. If I make a real professional mold for somebody else to sell or that they paid me to do, I'm going to spend time really making sure all the edges were not bumpy on the inside. And I would do that by rolling out a slab and then making this really clean. Or using a mold box out of wood, making mold around it, or some kind of cardboard thing that can glue together, so that'd be really clean edges. But this is kind of the quicker way to do it, so to speak, because you don't have tools at home to create mold boxes and cut wood, I'm sure. Some of you do, but not all of you. So I get that all built up nicely, and what I'm going to do is make sure my mold is really clean too. So I'm going to make sure it's really clean. This one is already been fired clay that I'm casting, so I'm just wiping it off. But this is just where you wouldn't wipe this off. You wouldn't worry too much about the latex. You'd be messing with the latex. You just want to make sure the latex doesn't have a bunch of gunk on there. Make sure it's clean. Make sure the flange is down, glued down onto the board, like the one on the cardboard was. It would be connected still. Or if you put it on clay, make sure you push it down all the way. Okay. So I'm just cleaning this up to make sure there's no issues. I also have the wall really nicely done. I could use some water on a paper towel to get rid of the lumpy bumpies if I want to make it really clean, which I'm doing, because I want it to be nice. Everything's going to show up, so I just want to make sure I'm doing good craftsmanship the whole way through. Okay, so on the rubber, you're going to have rubber like this. This is made on a 3D object, so whole object, not just flat. I want to show you, the rubber should be pretty thick, not just like a tiny thin layer. And I want to show you something important. The rubber needs to not have any undercuts on it either. It'll pull out, but you don't want to have problems like this. I'm going to go back before I do this mold, which I'm not doing right now. But once I'm doing the mother mold, I would actually come in and trim this little piece off right here, because it's creating this channel that will block this one. I'm going to add more rubber onto it because I don't want these weird little spots to catch the plaster. This is all good. So the secret about undercuts is, if you look straight down at the object with one eye closed, if there's any areas where you can't see down below, like a cave area, I said this in the directions, but just so you don't know, then that means there's an undercut right there. So what you do when you're making your tile is you look at it, and if you can't see anything, you can push a little tool down there and see if you can see it, the tip of it, or like a fork or whatever you're using, like a little knife or pen. You can go down and just adjust a little bit at a time on your tile before you start the process. But you also want to check it on the rubber mold, like I just said about that. So I noticed a spot on this. I'm casting this directly with plaster, but you'll have rubber, but I just noticed a couple spots that are off, so I'm just going to show you how I fix them, go in there and fix little things. Now I want it to be really clean and ready to go, so it's all set. Now I'm going to mix some plaster, and you guys can see that process. So you have the mold box made, and then I'm going to get this stuff ready for the plaster. Now you're going to want to keep the clay a little bit wet, so if you have a spray bottle, you might want to spray it down before you do this plaster part. You don't want it to be sopping on, to be like leather hard, or this is just a little plasticky, a little less than leather hard. If it dries up too much, it won't have as much strength. You can use a bucket to mix a plastering of any sort. These are like paint ones that I have. You don't want to use anything nice that you want to keep really nice, because it'll stick pretty well. So I actually like to use old, like milk cartons. This is a still water carton, old one. Cut off the top and do it. That way it's disposable. I don't have to worry about it getting ruined. Definitely don't use a nice mixing bowl you have for your house. that wouldn't be fun. Okay, so you want to get that all set, an old coffee can, whatever you want to mix in. Something that you don't worry about too much. I'm sure you'll be able to find something. You can even mix in a big cup, like a large cup, a disposable cup or something. But anyway, get yourself set up with that. I presume everyone probably has some milk container or some kind of container like this, so I'm going to use that as my example. You're going to add cold water, room temperature water. You're going to make about double the amount of water if you do the plaster right. So however much water you put in there, it's going to be about twice as much plaster, usually, roughly. Like the amount at the end, I mean, will be about twice as much. So I got that. And keep an extra little ball of clay close by. Oops. In case it starts to leak, I can use this to stop the leaks. I'm working over linoleum, so in case I have spillage, I don't ruin anything. Should probably put down some newspaper, more cardboard, something like that. Now I got my water, I got my plaster from the bag that I have. It's like powder form, just like you guys have. You want to be really careful. You don't want any water to get into big plaster container, big bag, because it'll ruin it. It'll start to harden. You want to keep it dry and usable. So I have my water, I have my plaster. Safety-wise, plaster's not really dangerous to touch at all with your hands. It's really pretty safe material. The main thing is if you breathe in the powder, if you got flinging it all over and getting a bunch of powdery dust in the air, you don't want to breathe it in. It's not going to like be poisonous immediately. It's more the long-term effects on your respiratory to have pieces of any kind of powder going in your lungs, like smoke or anything that's not good for you. So if you want to wear an N95 mask, you could, but it's really not necessary. The main thing is don't create a bunch of dust. And you're going to want to have your setup so you can get your plaster to your water pretty easily. You may want to wear gloves because you're going to need to get your hands down in there, and you may want to have some kind of mixing stick. This is a random piece of plastic. You don't need a mixing stick though, because you can mix it all up with your hands and get the clumps out. The process is going to be that I'm going to sprinkle the powder in the water a little at a time, building it up, but not too small of a time, because once you start putting plaster in the water, it's going to create a chemical reaction that's going to cause it to harden. And you don't want to wait too long until you have the right amount in there and you mix it up to be able to pour, otherwise it'll get stuck in your container halfway hard and you won't be able to use it. You don't have a lot, you have enough, but you don't have so much that you want to like mess it up and have to start over again. So you got to be accurate but fairly fast, not rushing to spill it everywhere. But you really want to sprinkle a decent amount of it over and over until it starts building up. What's happening when it is the particles are going down in the water and building up like sedimentation, like sedimentary rock almost. And it's giving it enough to where it becomes a kind of mix down there. You don't mix it in though, you just sprinkle it until it starts to form an island on the top. And that island, once it doesn't go deep into the water anymore and the island's formed, there's instructions in the module, then you know it's ready to actually mix it all together. So I'm going to do the actual mixing in the next video demo. That way I have enough time to mix it, pour it, and tell you all about the process. But I just want to explain it so you understand there's going to be an island forming, and then after that forms, and I know there's enough, I don't want to mix it because I need to have the island to know I have enough plaster to water ratio. There's also a way you can measure it out, but this is the most straightforward way. Once the island's formed, and I'll show you how much of it, then you can actually go and actually clump it all, unclump it all, and mix it all together with fully with your hands. But you have to wait until that point. All right, see you in the next video.